Capablanca's approach in this position was slightly different. He always played knight bd7, and after rook c1, c6, in case of bishop d3, took on c4, bishop takes c4, knight d5, and exchanging the bishops. And the idea was after castle to take on c3, rook c3, and play e5. So as you can see, it's the same idea of solving the problems, bishop c8, and white tried hard different lines here, bishop b3, queen c2, and also white tried taking on e5, knight takes e5, exchange on e5, f4, very aggressive, but after queen e4, the deep analysis and practice showed no advantage, no real advantage for white. They even tried to sacrifice pawn on e3 after bishop d3, but with no success. So eventually it was recognized that Capablanca's defense in its classical form offers very little hope for white to gain solid initiative, and white always tried for deviation. And Alekhine, in fact, in his match against Capablanca, always played knight e4. So that's an idea to keep more pieces aboard and still, pretending that black's problems, bishop on c8, cannot be resolved immediately. Capablanca played knight 5 f6, knight g3, and then he decided to change the queens. So this position happened many times in the match Alekhine-Capablanca. So it seems a little bit dull, isn't it? But there were many games that had they were lively, and there was so much exciting content that was unfortunately disregarded for many years because people believed that Queen's Gambit was not worth of their attention. Just show you one game to demonstrate how much fight was inserted by these two great minds into such a dull quote-unquote position. So in game 20, I think with game 20, Alekhine played here bishop d3. Why he played bishop d3 here? Obviously he doesn't want Capablanca to play b6 and solve the problem with bishop coming on b7. So it seems that black has a very passive position, because if white bring all the rook on d1, king goes on e2, then e4, then black is in deep trouble. So Capablanca of course played e5, and after d5 knight g4. So we're trying to capitalize immediately on the position of white's king on d2 and black's rook on d8. Alekhine's planned playing e6. So now if black takes on e6, then after king e2, it has very bad position because pawn structure is compromised, and white knight has a very good square on e4, for instance. Yeah, and black still has to develop its pieces from the queen side, bishop and a rook. Potentially, by the way, if with some exchanges, e5 square could be also occupied by white knights. So Capablanca had something else in mind, and after e6 he played knight d7 e5. Now e takes f7, king takes f7, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, rook c3. For a moment it seems that just black attack is out of steam because it's over, just one extra pawn for white, and there's very little black can do about it. But Capablanca planned b5 here, and suddenly white is under tremendous pressure because the bishop is pinned, and there's a threat b4, and unless something is done, then the bishop will be simply lost. If you play b4, then after a5 the white position is broken. So a3 doesn't help, because then, for instance, black could play b4, ab4, bishop a6, just winning the piece. So what else? What can be done? So Alekhine found a brilliant chance. He played f4, and after b4 he even sacrificed an exchange, bc3, king takes c3. So there's a very complicated position there, knight and two pawns for a rook, but there's a lot of tension. Capablanca moved his king in the center, taking this pawn on e5, and after knight e2, king e5, knight d4. So as you see, knight comes to the center, attacking this pawn. He played bishop b7, and then Alekhine took on h7, c5, knight f3 check, and with a lot of complication that followed this very tense opening, the game drawn. In fact, Capablanca at one point at move 40 made a big mistake, and Alekhine didn't capitalize on it, where he could win another pawn and having good winning chances. But this segment shows you how much fight could be discovered and rediscovered in the positions that look dull by our modern standards. For the eyes that used to look at Greenfield defense or King's Indian or Benoni or other complications in Maran, this classical King's Gambit offered very little entertainment. In fact, it was the contrary. Just study the games of the greatest geniuses and look again at the match in 1927, Alekhine Capablanca, Buenos Aires 1927. Now that was Alekhine's ways to deviate, knight e4, and he always stuck to that, and he won number of brilliant games. And one of the brilliant games we'll look afterwards. It's the game he beat Emanuel Lasker in 1934 in international tournament in Zurich. But White were probably not satisfied with this line, and they looked for some other options. And in this position, after rook c1, c6, or even the positions beforehand after knight bd7, White tried to do what is called fighting for tempo. So because Black's idea is just to take on c4, eventually it has to take on c4. Why not to find another useful move? And of course, White played here an a3. White played here a queen c2. Always trying to keep a little bit of pressure and waiting for Black to take on c4. For instance, after queen c2, a6, there were even games looking at a4 here in this position. And there were some great games. So there were a number of very little details. For us, they seem relevant because we have a choice of moving from one opening to another opening. We play Nimzo Indian, and we played Benoni, we played Volga Gambit, we played King's Indian. While at that time, the players, they had this very little loan to walk around and to show their great abilities. So that's why they treasured every detail, every inch, of the progress that they could make. And you could find the games when after dc4, bishop c4, knight d5, I guess it's Alekhine Rubinstein, there he used the idea of playing bishop f4. Sounds ridiculous, because White is bringing bishop back, actually giving up the bishop for knight, compromising against pawn structure. But in these positions, whether it's exactly this position or it could be different, White is still entertaining the main idea of the Queen's Gambit decline. Black's bishop on c8 is still there, and without Black's solving this problem, he cannot develop other pieces conveniently and having a nice game. So this little problem, as we see it now, of bishop c8 created so many details, so many little tricks that were employed by both sides trying to gain an advantage on this limited available space. Of course, either after a3 or queen c2, Black can always play knight e4, sort of mixing the ideas of Lasker's defense and Capablanca's defense, trying to exchange the bishops, and then eventually preparing, knight takes e3, and then either dc4 and e5, or b6 and bishop b7. So remember that Black can always return to this line. But also, Black tried here to play a6, to use the ideas with a6, or what is called the upgraded fianchetto that was entertained in some games by Alexander Alekhine by taking on c4 and playing b5. And then just keep playing bishop b7. In fact, just to be on the safe side, Alekhine always tried to play h6 first, and then after bishop f4, he moved to this position because it's always important to keep the pawn out of h7 where it could be attacked. When, for instance, when bishop comes on d3. then after queen c2, this pawn can be attacked. And in our collection of the games, we show you some of the examples where this weakness was used by white. And one of the games that could be quoted is Rubinstein Capablanca, played in St. Petersburg in 1914. So Alohin entertained this line, as I said, as h6, d4, bishop c4, b5, and then developing the bishop. So bishop d3, playing a6, so preparing c5. And he had some decent results, but eventually the line with a4 was introduced, and one of the games where it was played and gained popularity was Fischer-Spassky in a match in 1972.